Now, from the University of Okoboji, it's Okoboji Broadcast with Jeff Thee.
Welcome to Okoboji Broadcast, everybody. Welcome to the new year of 2024, right here where history comes alive at the Dickinson County Museum. And my friend Mary Dreyer is here with us. So again, happy after the first of the year. Mary.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. We made it around the sun one more time.
You know, this isn't fair though, Jeff.
How is that?
You're just emanating warmth and glowing and all that, and got my Iowa white skin on.
I'm kind of like Pigpen and Peanuts, where you always had that little dust cloud around him when he was walking. Mine's like emanating heat off of me.
Yes.
Had a little time in the sun over the break.
Yes, I'm so glad that you had time in the sun.
I needed that because when we got back after a few days, after what seemed like an endless summer, fall season, came home and there was a blizzard this past Monday.
This was not a blizzard.
Okay, it's snow.
It snowed a few inches.
Yeah.
It didn't blow.
You're right.
The power stayed on.
Yes, didn't have to go to the grocery store and build up for 3 days.
It wasn't a 2 loaf of bread and 3 gallon of milk blizzard. However, Jeff, back in the day,
yes,
we have had major blizzards here.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes.
The two that I'm thinking of: Armistice Day blizzard in 1940. We've told stories about that before, and probably will again.
Yeah.
The one we highlighted this morning, at way back when, was in 1975. The Great Blizzard of 1975.
Yes, and I remember the latter part of the 70s we had some really big winters, but 75 was people walking and trying to feed their cattle and loss of life of cattle, and people walking when we still had telephone poles, and you'd see these pictures of the tops of the telephone poles and people walking by them. We're talking a lot of snowfall.
I was talking to a guy yesterday about that blizzard, and he was on a snowmobile going north on Jackson Avenue here in Spirit Lake, and they had to be careful not to get hit by the lines, the power lines up above them.
Yeah.
Because they weren't up above them.
Right.
Yeah.
And they'd have been active.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not a good combination. Active electricity and wet snow, not at all.
Not a good combination at all. But
so what can we see from the Spirit Lake Beacon in 1975?
Well, we're looking at a special edition because of this major storm. I did not realize that the storm was so widespread, but also impacted every part of life around here.
Right.
No electricity. The water plants got shut down.
Oh my.
Telephone service was out because lines were down.
Right.
And evidently back in this time, it seems so long ago, but it really wasn't.
It does, but I mean, we had all the modern conveniences with, indoor plumbing, heating, and
except when we didn't,
except
during
when
the blizzard.
we didn't, but it was carried in different ways than it is now.
Yeah. They tried to keep the telephone lines going by using batteries. Evidently there was a battery backup system. But the call went out that folks shouldn't be calling people on their phones because they wanted to maintain the batteries for emergency calls. The more I read about this storm, the more incredible it seems.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, I think, to me, the worst part of it was out in the country, the farmers. We received a letter yesterday from a friend of the museum who lived west of West Lake and raised cattle. And they had terrific loss of life of the cattle. Yeah. And how they survived. In the house, they didn't have the electricity, they didn't have the water, they didn't have all this stuff.
Right.
But they had to keep feeding the cattle.
Well, sure.
But they couldn't get to the feed. They couldn't get to the cattle. The snow was so high that the cattle ignored the fences because they could just walk right over
them.
And so they got away. And what happened was that the cattle, it was so cold also, and the wind was so strong that their nostrils would get filled up with the blown snow, and they couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And they died.
Yeah.
And what part of this story that I didn't know about was that insurance didn't cover a lot of the cattle deaths because in the policies it was written that they would cover for freezing. The cattle didn't freeze. They couldn't breathe.
Asphyxiated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the financial loss to farmers was just huge. Yeah. We heard this morning stories from many of the people here at Way Back When about what happened to them during this storm, and that the blizzard came up quickly. Schools were let out early afternoon. It started on a Friday. But there wasn't a whole lot of warning. This was before we had
Doppler radar. I mean, there was radar,
and cell phones, and all that.
But it wasn't
stuff.
Doppler radar. We didn't have hundreds and hundreds of satellites above the earth.
And we didn't have Steve Schwaller to tell us that the storm was coming.
And there was the other thing for
Yeah.
There was no KUOO at that time.
No. I was in high school in 1975, and so it doesn't seem that long ago.
Yeah.
But when you think year-wise, it was what, 25, 50?
Well, we're almost at 50 years.
48 years ago, almost 50 years ago. That's a long time.
There's a half a century.
Is a long time. One story,
that hurts when I say it that way.
Yeah, really. One story I wanted to share from the Beacon that I think is just a hoot is about motels harboring the storm orphans. And this is a story about the Oaks Motel, which was on Highway 9 by the Highway 9 bridge.
Okay.
And the landlord and his wife hosted 17 guests at a candlelight breakfast last Saturday morning, serving rolls delivered by snowmobile by Donna Short of the Spirit Lake Bakery the night before. The landlord was slightly handicapped, having only a 6-cup percolator for coffee making. She continued to show concern for her guests, and by 4 p.m. Saturday afternoon, began making preparations for the evening meal, baking 2 beef roasts with all the fixins, including pumpkin bread for dessert.
Wow.
And it talks about different people that were stranded at the hotel. And another cool story involves Bill Ahart and his son Jim, who were the cemetery sextons. They had been at a cemetery at the Lakeview Cemetery in Spirit Lake, and they were involved in a funeral there, and they were fortunate to find lodging at the Oaks Motel when it became impossible to get any further toward their farm home 5 miles northeast of Spirit Lake. They left the motel Saturday morning and spent the breakfast hours at the Spirit Lake Bakery, found other places open to eat their meals Saturday, spent Saturday night as guests of the county, finding sleeping accommodations at the county jail.
Oh my.
Yes, and were driven home Sunday by Ronnie Hartwig with a 4-wheel drive vehicle. This storm was it was huge.
It was a monster.
It was a monster.
Yeah.
It was monster. And we're seeing photos of dead livestock. We're seeing photos of just whiteout conditions. We're seeing photos of the big snow piles. It was just something. And one of the things we talked about this morning is that in 1975, we didn't have the equipment that we have now to move snow.
Right.
So it was a much bigger deal. People didn't have snow blowers so much, and the county was using blades more than snow blowers.
Right,
and
right.
It just made a huge, huge difference. But there were blizzards and bad storms back in the 1800s too.
Oh, sure.
My good friend Frank found a story about the Kingman family. The Kingman house on the southeast corner, or southwest corner of Big Spirit Lake, is probably the oldest house on the lake. And he found a story, and he'd like to tell it to you.
Well, let's do that. Come on in here.
Thank you, Frank.
Another survivor of the blizzard of 75.
So tell us about
Well, we were talking, and you guys have just mentioned here too, about how hard it was back in even 1975 to predict storms.
Right.
And so prior to that, storms would come up and go away at a drop of a hat.
Yeah.
And one of the stories that I had told after reading in the resource room was that of the Kingman home, Alvarado Kingman, who built the first cabin there in 1858, shortly after the massacre. He was home in the middle of the winter with his daughter, Abby, I believe was her name, while his wife and other children, I believe they were over in Algona at the time because she was pregnant and they wanted her closer to family for the pregnancy and
Sure.
stuff. So it was just him and his daughter, and it was a nice morning, and he left because if you got to know that around the lakes area in the late 1800s, there were no trees.
Right.
Every once in a while, you'd find a grove, and people would take advantage of those groves.
Right.
But up on that part of the Spirit, there was no trees around the Kingman cabin,
right,
the way there is today. Well, he set off and he went to the nearest grove to harvest some wood for the winter. The rest of the winter, and he took a team of oxen and a wagon with him to the grove, which happens to be where the current Methodist camp is. Oh. So that's how far away they had to go. He had to go to find a grove that he could harvest some wood. Left his daughter, 10-year-old Abby, at home alone. She was out playing, and it was pretty decent weather in the morning. And even she noticed that there was a change in the weather, wind shifted or something, I'm sure. And she, as all 10-year-olds did in the 1800s, knew exactly what to do. Bring in wood into the home, put feed out for what livestock they had around the home, and basically get ready because something was coming.
Yeah.
And it did. And at the same time, over by the Methodist camp where the dad was harvesting the wood, he also notices that change as well. And says, well, I got to get home. So he turns the ox around and they start heading towards home. Didn't get very far. And the ox just wouldn't go any further. They'd had it. They couldn't see. Snow was getting deeper and stuff, and it was just difficult for him. So he turned the oxen loose, thinking, I'll come back and get them again some other time. And then he took off by himself to get home. And it was hours and hours later that night when he finally stumbled into this cabin. Luckily, I don't even know how those
blinding
they were tough back then. They were tough.
Oh, they were tough.
And the daughter, 10-year-old. Knew what to do. They always did, and basically thawed him out and nursed him back to health the next couple of days. And that was just an example of how storms came up, and if you weren't prepared for it and you didn't know it was coming. And there were other stories like that too, where a one-room schoolhouse with 20 kids in it would get hit by a blizzard, and parents just have to hope after 2 or 3 days that the kids were still there. Wow. So it's just another example of the story. So
pretty interesting. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. Sure. Come back in here, Mary. Don't want to forget about you. Isn't that fascinating?
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah. I mean, we have all these modern technology now. You can out in the Pacific Northwest see a system coming. It's going to be here in about 3 days.
We know 3-5 days. Yeah. We know a big storm's coming.
And back then it was, you kind of had to have your internal barometer. If I can feel the wind's coming up, it feels like something's brewing.
Something I've learned from looking into the stories of these big snowstorms back in the day, it seems like the day of the storm, before the storm came, the weather was typically really nice. Yeah. Armistice Day blizzard was a beautiful day. Guys were out hunting ducks on the lake and all that. And this storm too, it was a nice day.
Yeah.
And then boom, the storm hits and
incredible
chaos ensues.
Yeah. Well, I think we don't appreciate enough of what we have to withstand these weather systems now. That's compared to, certainly the 19th century, but even through the latter part of the 20th century.
When we were in high school.
When we were kids, fascinating. And I remember other winters, even, like 78, I remember because I can remember over in Algona, they had cleared the roads and used these big cutting, and it was walls of snow up to the telephone lines at that time.
Yeah.
And you were like in a tunnel when you were going down the highway. And October of 91, we had a Halloween snowstorm. I had just moved here.
I remember that one now.
And that was before too many people had cell phones, and we were at KUOO, and everybody used two-way radio to go out and report how dangerous this was. And so We're a lot better off in 2024 than we were in 1975. We'll just we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing this special edition of the Spirit Lake Beacon.
Yes. Hey, we've got a couple things coming up. Next Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock, Sue Betcher from the Iowa State Extension Office is going to be here at the museum presenting a program on what should we do with Grandma's yellow pie plate. And this program gets into kind of the emotions of our stuff and how we want how we want to care for these things after we're done using them. What do we do with our things? And we find that it's not maybe the high monetary value things that cause issues. It's Grandma's yellow pie plate.
Sentimentality.
The sentimentality. So Sue's going to be here. There's going to be a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion. No need to register for this, although if you can, give us a call or shoot us an email just to let us know how many to set up for. And I'll also be talking a little bit when Sue's done about what kinds of things we're looking for here at the museum and how we care for things, and also how we catalog and maintain things here at the museum. So that will be next Tuesday.
Very good.
And also we've got some things in the work for Winter Games too. Keep your eyes peeled.
Okay. Well,
think Ice Harvest Challenge.
Ooh. I like that.
Well, I'll tell you more next week.
It's a step back in time as well, right there. Yes, indeed. I was just going to say on the the artifacts that you have, how many times in your life have you'll see something at an antique store or something we had, and I don't know whatever happened to it. So, interesting. All right. My friend, thank you to you. Thank you to Frank for helping us out talking about
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Frank. The big blizzard of 1975. We want to thank Mary and Frank for their time here. We thank you for watching us right here on Okoboji Broadcast.
Okoboji Broadcast from the studios at historic Arnold's Park Amusement Park is brought to you in part by West Wealth Management, a financial advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services. Advisor Jan Spielman, AJ Spielman, and Erica Wachholz. The headquarters of the University of Okoboji is at the Three Sons, open Monday through Saturday 10 to 5 and Sunday from 10 to 4. Bank Midwest, dream big, plan wisely, live well. Lakes Regional Healthcare and Avera Partner. Beck Engineering in Spirit Lake. Be Radiant Laser Skin Studio in the Okoboji Plaza in Okoboji.